This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome back for a surprise bonus episode, Lessons Learned from 10 Months of Direct Sales Book Distribution. And what a lovely surprise this is. You should see my beaming face. I'm absolutely delighted to be back at the podcast mic. I have missed this. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. It is a solo show. I haven't started podcasting again. I haven't started doing interviews again. But I did promise you that I would do the odd, well, I didn't promise. I said I hoped to be able to do the odd intermittent episode. I still hope to be able to do my annual Lessons Learned episode. And occasionally when I learn stuff, hey, top 5 learner here, I got to write that shit down. I got to share it with you. So here I am back after several months of not having podcast. And what a year it has been. It has been so wonderful and so grueling and so much. I don't even know where to begin. I'm not sure I have a particular update for you other than to say, oh my God, I probably still need another holiday. Okay, I have been running my own warehouse. I think I was still podcasting when this was kind of starting, or maybe not. I don't remember when I stopped the podcast, but I have my own warehouse. I, as you know, have had direct sales for quite some time. My Sacha Black website always had direct sales, but I have started my own warehouse. We are completing our own distribution and fulfillment for website sales, and we have had quite the year. So I thought it was high time that I culminated all of these lessons and shared them with the community in the only way that I know how. All right, so this is Lessons Learned from 10 Months of Direct Sales Book Distribution. The history. I started my Shopify store around the 10th of December 2023. This was shortly after I had gone to 20 Books Vegas, the last 20 Books Vegas, and given the keynote, and met my dear friend Adam Beswick, who basically, we met actually prior to that, but at Vegas, he essentially bullied me into doing TikTok. And so when we came back from Vegas, I believe it was around the 19th or 20th of November that I finally took the plunge and decided to commit to TikTok after starting it in the January of 2023. On the 8th of December, I went viral. That was a big sort of alarm bell, or not alarm bell, but like a positive. It was like a big green flag to me that I needed to take advantage of this opportunity. So between the 8th of December and the 10th of December, I did a very rush job of starting and creating an entire Shopify web store. I integrated with BookVault and stayed with print-on-demand shipping until February 2025. So a solid year and sort of 3 months, I would say. I had a print-on-demand fulfilled website, so it was transactional. But from February 2025, I took over the distribution and fulfillment of all of my website orders in my own warehouse. And this rest of this podcast are all of the lessons that I have learned over the last 9-10 months from running that warehouse. And you guys know me, I am nothing if not consistent. I will talk numbers, but I'm going to make you wait until the end. Okay, first of all, please note, I will talk about finances, I will talk about systems, I will talk about the occasional legal thing. Absolutely nothing I say is financial, legal, or tax advice. You must seek advice from professionals in your own countries and tax territories. All right, the other caveat that I want to give is that I 100% recognise that this model is not for 99, probably 0.9% of authors. It is a lot of fucking work. A lot of fucking work. It is a lot of logistics, a lot of peopling, a lot of team building, a lot of paperwork, and an unfucking fathomable amount of problem solving. This is about as far removed as you can get from sitting behind a desk and writing 24/7. So, why am I saying that? Well, because I don't want you to listen to this episode with an open heart and think, oh my God, this is amazing, I need to do this. You absolutely don't. I want you to actually listen to this with a really skeptical mind. I think being skeptical will keep you on the right track for creating a business that you love. And that is the key. I genuinely believe that that is the path to success, is by creating a business that you love. When you love what you do, it makes it easy. And if it's easy, it is joyful. And then you're not going to burn out, right? So please know that I am framing this entire episode, all of these lessons learned, from that perspective. I fucking love my warehouse. I love what I'm doing. All right, why go direct in the first place? I'd always had a transactional website for Sacha Black work, but it very rarely did more than, I don't know, maybe 20 quid a month. Occasionally it would do more because I had consults, but basically it did not wash its face. It was not paying even for the hosting fees, really. So I knew that the work that I was about to do for Ruby could amount to nothing, especially because TikTok at that point didn't have an innate sales platform that I was using, and I would be relying on people clicking more than one button because they'd have to click the link in my bio and then click to the website and then click to buy a book. The chances of me actually earning anything were pretty remote. But I also didn't want to be beholden to TikTok the way I'd been beholden to other sources of income. For example, my corporate day job. I don't know if you guys remember, but I was under threat of redundancy multiple times when I was in corporate, and my house was owned by my corporate company, and so I was always in danger. And so I didn't want to be beholden to TikTok and its visibility and everything that it was giving me in the same way that I had been to all of the other platforms and sort of organizations. And the thing was, I knew, having gone viral once, that it had become a game to me. I am highly competitive, and knowing that I could make the machine go viral meant that I absolutely wanted to make it go viral again. Okay, so what do I kind of mean by why should you go direct? For me, this is twofold. Why should you go direct as an author? Why should you have a direct store? But also, why should readers come to you? Why should they shop at your direct store? So for you, you can earn more per sale. Print-on-demand companies integrating with Shopify automatically give you more because there are no hidden fees. You're not having to pay delivery charges because the customer is going to pay for the shipping. Whoops, I'm trying to take my desk out there. But when you shift to print runs and you doing the delivery of the books and the fulfillment, you more than half the cost of printing each print-on-demand book, which means you double the amount of profit you can make, although obviously you have to take off your overheads from that. But you are more or less going to earn more, or at least I have. It has worked out for me. However, you also give yourself a host of other problems like fulfillment, overheads, etc. But you then gain a lot of flexibility and potential. And by that, I mean you have the opportunity to make bigger profit and also do more for your customers, create more products. You have the ability to give them freebies or discount codes or loyalty programs, etc., etc. But, and this is a huge but, and this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this episode, what do you want your business to look like? Do you want to choose the problems that I'm about to share with you? I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Only you can decide that. And there are problems. There are major, major consequences, especially in your initial setup period. So I usually write and publish 3 books a year. And this year I've dropped that to 2 published, though I will have written a 3rd. And also I wrote and published a short story. So a kind of like mini novella. but I wasn't able to get the third main book published. So it sort of sounds like I've still done the same amount, but I don't feel like I have, because I would normally have published 3 major books. And really, I'm publishing 1 full-length novel of 100k, 1 of 50k, which is half my normal length, and then the sort of short story, which was 5k, and then I will have drafted but not published a third story. So I'm definitely down on the number of words that I typically produce per year. Despite that, despite me producing and publishing less, this is actually my biggest year ever for income. So my tax year is April the 1st to March the 31st. And so we're 7 months into this tax year, and I have already beaten the entire of my previous tax year. Let me just say that again. This tax year, I have already beaten the entire of last tax year. That is a big, big fucking growth. That's going to lead me to almost double on last year, and last year was a quadrupling on the year before. So it is a huge amount of turnover to increase. And I think, very importantly, this goes to show that you do not have to be rapid releasing anymore to make good money, but you do have to choose the problems that you want in order to make that money. I am going to confess that the fact that I've not published 3 books this year is a direct consequence of the warehouse, and also increasing my team size and the need to train staff, look after staff, and just generally have more communication. It's also a consequence of us doing additional things. We've done book boxes. We obviously had a Kickstarter that dwarfed the prior Kickstarter. It was a 6-figure Kickstarter campaign. It has taken an enormous amount of team time and my time and brain space and logistical fuckery, basically. But all of those things and that iteration of IP are why I haven't seen a dip in income. I've also sold some rights. I got a very, very good rights sale in, and that has helped keep my income up. I have constantly been iterating my income, creating new streams of revenue. This does take up brain space. How do you want to make your money? That is the question. I like having my fingers in multiple pies. Sorry, as a lesbian romance writer, I apologise. That definitely was not scripted, and neither was the giggle. Okay, I just, broadly speaking, wanted to point out that you don't have to rapid release anymore to make good money. Now, I think there are several other benefits to running your own direct website where you do have fulfillment responsibility, and this is things like reader loyalty. You will be treating them better by the very fact that you are shipping those parcels with love, care, and attention. You're able to provide higher quality books and also give extra goodies. Higher quality because, for example, you can sign them. We do things like we have a warehouse stamp, which proves that it's come directly from our warehouse. We've just integrated a second stamp, which we put inside the book on the signing page, where it's a pre-order stamp to show that people have got an official Ruby Road pre-order. We also do things like commission character art. We print that character art. We print bookmarks. We have Romantics pop sockets. Romantics being my kind of reader community name. They chose themselves. They wanted to call themselves the Romantics, and now we've got merchandise and all kinds of things for the community. But this is really at the heart of the mindset shift that you need and how you should frame thinking about your direct store. Why should a reader bother coming to you when they can get next day shipping for free on Amazon? If you can't answer that question with a really fucking good response, then don't do this, because it will not succeed. For me, this looks like 3 promises. Every single book that leaves my warehouse is hand signed by me. Yes, this is a big fucking commitment. It is a ball ache. But what I do to help myself is I batch sign. So I will sign for 4 to 5 hours, occasionally longer, depending on how much my body deteriorates, and I will get several thousand books signed in one go so that it then doesn't disturb my writing time. Number 2, they get extra bonuses. I just mentioned we do character art and pop sockets and stickers and bookmarks. And that's what they get for ordering directly from me. Last, if they pre-order a book in any format that I have for sale on the website, and I say that because I do license some audiobooks and therefore I don't have control of them, then it will get shipped before the public release date, meaning I will ship out those physical books or those ebooks before they go live on Amazon and Kobo and Google and wherever else. I aim for about 2 weeks prior to the release date, but it also depends on print runs and me hitting the deadlines. But no matter what, we aim to do that. Okay. There are several things that you should consider before leaving print on demand and direct sales and moving to self-fulfillment. Number 1, where are you going to stock your books? Do you have local warehousing facilities or somewhere that you own that you can use yourself? You need somewhere waterproof. You need somewhere damp proof. Whilst books can cope just fine in the cold, they cannot survive in the damp. So putting them in your garage is not going to work unless your garage is heated and waterproof. Dampness in the air will curl the book covers. Stock requires so much more space than you think it does, because it's not just the books that you need space for. It's also packaging. It's also space to pack. It's also space for the parcels before they're collected, but once they have been packed. It's also space for a computer and a printer and all of the freebies and a fucking plethora of other things. Okay, number 2, what is your cash flow like? Do you have the capital, not only the capital, but capital that you can risk losing to spend on investing this? Because this is a risk. This might not work. If you do not have a guaranteed way to drive traffic to your website and convert that, so not just drive the traffic, but then convert it to sales, this is not for you. You are going to plunge a whole shitload of money into a warehouse and stock and then not be able to sell it. I do not recommend that you do this unless you have an established audience who consistently buy from you on a print-on-demand website, transactional website. If you have several months of sustained sales on your print-on-demand website, then maybe it's time to consider. And I will tell you the levels, the financial levels at which I then made this choice later. Thanks to incredible advice from one of my dearest friends and my closest author friend, I didn't buy a shipment container to convert to put on family land. This was genuinely where I was going with this. I was thinking about buying a set of 3 or 4 shipping containers that was going to end up costing around 40 grand. And instead, I just rented a warehouse for a year. So I was only risking the cost of like 1 year's rent, which was circa 9 grand or so. And I basically put that 9 grand into an account and was like, okay, that's gone. If I lose it, I lose it. If I don't make it back, I don't make it back. But I could afford to risk that, basically. And, you know, if I decided after 3 months that I wanted to shut down and I couldn't get out of the contract, then I would just have that 9 grand there to pay, and that would be fine. So thank you to that friend, and I'm sure they're probably listening and know exactly who I'm talking about. Okay, number 3. What is your problem-solving resiliency like? Solving problems, if it isn't your bag, is relentlessly exhausting, because problems arise in absolutely fucking every area of this business, from shipping to printing labels to packaging to import and export paperwork to sourcing products, VAT, pricing, website issues, delivery issues, etc. The list is literally endless. Basically any area of this business has the potential to go wrong. And trust me, it probably will. There is rarely a day, I would say, without some kind of issue that needs resolving. How does hearing that make you feel? When I tell you that we very rarely get through a day without an issue, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about your time being interrupted to deal with that? If you don't have a team. If you have a team in place and they can't solve it, it then falls to you. How do you feel about that? Are you excited? Are you horrified? Pay attention to those emotions, because the only business you should be building is one that brings you joy. I will confess, my problem-solving resiliency is not one of my top skills. However, one of my top skills is finding and building a team that is incredible, fucking incredible at what they do, and who are far superior to me at solving problems. And I have also learned how to trust people and how to empower people to do their jobs, and also to let go. I think that is probably the biggest thing that I have learned over this last year, is how to let go of control, to trust in others that they have your back and that they are better than you at loads of jobs, you know, and that has been so freeing for me. And even though I am still working on making my time fully my own so that I can get ahead of my production schedule, we are almost there. And I don't think I've been this happy in the business in a long time. And that is testament to the incredible team that I have. Okay. Last is the reality that if you want to fulfill direct yourself, you will need staff. So I kind of started talking about this already. But if you want to continue to write, then you are going to need somebody to do the packaging for you, because it very, very, very rapidly takes up a huge amount of time. When I was doing TikTok Shop, why the fuck I did this, I don't know, but I decided to start TikTok Shop before we moved into the warehouse. Who fucking does that? Why did I do that? I had a warehouse to convert, and I was like, oh, I know what a good idea, but let me open up a TikTok Shop, because I fucking had any other time to do anything. I had boxes in my tiny little office everywhere, packaging shit, fucking roams of foam rolls in my garage. Oh my God, it was an absolute nightmare. And I got to about 20 parcels a day when I was like, yeah, I'm out. Like, this is taking up way too much of my time. Granted, you'll hear me later talk about packaging and how we're going to make things more efficient. But if you start hitting about 20 orders a day on your website, you should not be fulfilling them. One, because you're already clearly doing something well. The chances are you're also earning on other forms and streams of income. And two, your time is now going to be better spent writing and getting the next book out so you can increase your orders on your website. So if you think about it, even if you have a print-on-demand website, there's still staff involved. It's just that you're not the manager of those staff. The printers have the staff who are doing the packaging and the printing of labels and the shipping on your behalf. So no matter which way you cut it, whether it's you organising staff or your printers doing it for you, someone has to do the legwork for this. Okay, next, mindset shifts. I've had so many mindset shifts in the last year. The first and primary one being e-commerce. Yes, I am an author. That is my primary job. That is my primary role. It's my primary work. However, that is not really the business model that I'm running, at least not a traditional indie author business. I am now running fulfillment from my website and for my website sales, which means I also run an e-commerce business, a physical product business, because the majority of my sales on my website are physical books. So over and above that, like, I also have merchandise, and we are bringing more and more merchandise on board. These things combine make for a very, very different business structure and a very different set of problems compared to that classic indie author model of print on demand, write, publish, repeat, upload, use one platform, you know? And of course, direct now means something different than it used to mean. It used to mean, not direct, wide used to mean, you know, all the other stores. And actually wide, when we often say wide, we're often talking about direct sales now. But I have sort of, you know, evolved that another step further in order to shift my business into a more physical business. Okay, traffic direction. First of all, and most basic of all, I direct all traffic to my website without exception. This was terrifying, quite frankly, because for the longest time, Amazon had been my primary source of income. It is the most well-known, the most trusted book sales platform. And deciding to move all my traffic away from that was pretty fucking scary. I had a lot to lose by doing this. But I believed that I could do it. I believed that this would create sustainable income, that it would create more control in my business and also more flexibility, and more than anything, a way for me to create community within my readership and to be able to deliver to them what they wanted and what they desired from me. And so that is why I took this risk. So now all of my primary links on social media are on my website. If people ask where they can buy my books, I only tell them my website. If they are like, oh, I can't buy from your site because blah, then I will direct them to a more well-known online store. But primarily, I only talk about my website. Okay, schedules are a motherfucking bitch. When you're writing in a solo business and uploading your books online, your schedule is like your own. But when you bring on a team, they are reliant on you delivering on time so that they can do their job. How does that make you feel? How does knowing that you created a business, you went into this role knowing that you would work for yourself and that you would have control over everything, how does it make you feel to know that if you have a team, they are relying on you to hit deadlines? I'm just going to leave that there because I know some of you are going to be crawling and be like, no. And I suspect that some of you are like, I can't believe that you, Sasha, are okay with this when you're so independent and you're so like, fuck you to everybody in the system and blah, blah, blah. Well, you and me both, guys. You and me both. This has been the biggest surprise and delight for me. For a long time, I really, really hated being beholden to deadlines. And I think this was probably a corporate spillover. But being responsible for a team and needing to deliver for them is a very different feeling inside for me. I fucking adore my team. I love them. I care about them. And I want to deliver on time for them. This is like a total 180 reframing for me. And it feels like the right kind of pressure and responsibility attached to a deadline. Like those deadlines are not just for me, they are for them, but they're also for the business at large, like, and for the greater goals. Does that then put pressure on my creativity? Yes. Does that mean my creativity needs to show up on time? Yeah. But you know what? Like, I find that motivating because it's the right people around me. I think you also need to consider the fact that once you start bringing on a team, you are responsible for their income. Your creativity is responsible for their livelihood. How does that make you feel? If you are reeling and crawling away and feeling uncomfortable, don't fucking do it. Like, I am not here to encourage you to do this. I am just here to lay it the fuck out and tell you exactly how this is. This is not for everybody. But if you're listening and you're excited by everything that I'm saying, and if you are getting those little tingly, buzzy feelings, then maybe this is for you, and maybe you should be considering this. Okay. The first book that I published post Warehouse was a bit of a clusterfuck, I won't lie. We were all still learning and a ton of mistakes were made. Primarily the fact that I delivered Architecty late. That put pressure on the editor, it put pressure on the team, it put pressure on the printers, it put pressure on everyone and everything. It made all of the timelines really fucking tight, and it basically resulted in two main problems. We did a print run of 1,000 paperback books, and I can't quite remember how many hardbacks it was, but basically 20% of the order arrived damaged. That was like 200 books arrived damaged. But we had already sold over 1,000 pre-orders, paperback, over 1,000 paperback pre-orders. That meant we couldn't spare a single damaged book, let alone 20%. So we had already had to put a second order in and then This was at the point, I think we'd probably sold maybe 850 to 900, and we were like, oh, are we going to run out? But of course we were going to run out, because after a book launches, that's still the highest sales period, and we just had not thought about we were so focused on getting all of the pre-orders out, we actually forgot that we needed stock for afterwards. So we had drastically under-ordered, and in fact we should have ordered a print run of 2,000 books. But that was so unfathomable to me that I could possibly require 2,000 copies of my books. Like, I just couldn't get my head around the fact that we needed that quantity. But I can assure you that when those numbers start rolling in, you definitely need that. And so this caused a huge amount of anxiety. If I hadn't have been saving money, it would have caused a cash flow problem. It caused a space problem. I had to reorganize and redo. So I have a floor plan for the warehouse. I had to restructure the floor plan because we were going to have an additional 1,000 books in stock. And at that point, we were still expecting the Kickstarter delivery right around the same time. As it happened, it didn't come on time. And so that ended up being fine for the space. But it was going to cause a complete clusterfuck in there. The second mistake was releasing a book without checking in the diaries of the warehouse. So like the schedules and the holidays. And basically my main team member in the warehouse was on holiday during fulfillment week, which in a bout of the worst fucking timing, my mum got really sick in that week and was literally bedbound. So I had to stop writing and basically fulfill 1,000 pre-orders single-handedly. It was grueling, physically, mentally, and emotionally doing it on my own. I am not somebody who enjoys repetitive tasks. I don't enjoy being in there. I love signing the books. I love doing the odd packaging. I love doing the filming videos. I do not love doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again for hours at a time for multiple days on a trot. So that was a real lesson to me. And I think I actually needed to do that. And I say that sounds very weird, but doing that showed me that I never, ever, ever want to have to be responsible for the packing again. I very much was ready to let go of, having to be in the warehouse after that point. And so, in a weird way, I think it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it reminded me that my love is the writing and that I want to be at the desk. And that has massively helped me to prioritize writing in Territus when we have just had the Vows and Vendettas pre-orders go out. So I do feel like this was probably the best lesson that I could have learned. The other thing that we've done as a result of that is produced a heat map style document with everybody's annual leave dates, the delivery dates for products and for printed books, deadlines for me, product ordering dates because we're not ordering products early enough, we're not commissioning art early enough, and also like the preparation dates. So where like with the pre-orders, it's not just the physical books or the signing of the books, it's also the freebies and making sure that the freebie packets are prepped so that people can just pick a book and pick a freebie pack, and then it gets wrapped and packed. This was a huge lesson in logistics of both a warehouse and people. And it's also a reminder of why traditional publishing have such fucking long timelines. Like, I get it now. I did not get it. I do. And we are having to extend our deadlines, in order to actually be able to deliver what we have said we're going to deliver. Okay, exclusivity. Kindle Unlimited works for a reason. It has books exclusive to Amazon. You literally cannot get them anywhere else, meaning you're forced to go and get them from Amazon. Well, if that worked for Amazon, you can bet your ass it will work for others. This was my starting point. So I openly stole the idea. I have now 4 novellas / kind of short stories that I have published that are exclusive to my website. does this mean that I took a huge risk for the loss of visibility and potential sales of those books because they weren't on the big sites, the normal, the trusted sites? Yeah, absolutely. I get no rank and no visibility for those books on the biggest book algorithm machine in the world. Like, that is a huge risk. And I haven't just done this once, I've now done this 4 times. But I also, from the bottom of my heart, believe that this was one of the key sales tactics I used to get readers to come across to me. And oh my God, has it worked. I make sure that those short stories are content that I know that they'll want. They are super spicy, they're always romance oriented, and they're just that little bit more of the couple that they've just read and loved. I flash the extra books on my reels and videos, on social media, and then I let the questions flood in. Well, how do I get those books? Where do you get those books? Well, darling, let me tell you. And that is how I have brought so many readers across. All right, let's move on to pre-orders. Pre-orders are both a gift and a logistical fucking nightmare. How do you even get them? Okay, well, we ran an enormous campaign for Architecty, ending up with over 1,027 paperback pre-orders, 323 hardback pre-orders, and 193 ebook pre-orders. That was a total of 1,543 pre-orders on my website. Plus, I had over 1,000 ebooks pre-ordered on Amazon. So the total pre-orders were in excess of 250. 250? No, add a 0 on. 2,500 pre-orders. That's my biggest pre-orders to date, by far and away. Like, way the biggest. And more than half were on my website. That's wild to me. Wild. Did I maybe miss out on some juice on Amazon? Did I maybe miss out on rank? Yeah, I did. I don't care. I literally don't care. This was fucking epic. I love the fact that 1,500 people ordered direct. That is, I don't even know 1,500 people. That's amazing. I'm having like an epiphany right here live as I record this bloody podcast. So how did I get them though? I'm going back to what I said earlier on, which is the 3 promises. Everything comes signed. They get extra goodies, including a Romantics pop socket, series sticker, series bookmark, and art print, as well as a Ruby Ray reading tracker and like reading order and some other stickers and bits. And they get the books delivered early. That's both physical and digital books early. Those promises mean a lot. When they are desperate to find out what happens, or when they are desperate to start this new series that you have been talking about for 8 long fucking months, like, they will come to you if you promise to deliver early. We promoted the shit out of these 3 facts, and it is my belief that this is the reason they did so well. I also think that when you have consistently delivered to readers, you've consistently delivered high quality books, the books that they want, you're delivering, the tropes and the style and listening to the audience. Like, I think that also builds trust, and then they want to support you. And so they become happy to order direct. Okay. I won't, I do believe that it is all of those things, but I also think that it is now 2 years of pushing direct sales. I started in 2023. We had the whole of 2024, and we're now nearly at the end of 2025. So it's more or less 2 years of building direct sales and reader trust. Like, this is not like, if you look at the pre-orders that I got for the Kingdom of Immortal Lovers series, they are a fraction of this. So don't think that this is something that I took over the distribution and then this automatically happened. That's not the case at all. I won't go into all the marketing that we did, as this podcast is more about like the distribution and fulfillment side, but trust me, we pushed hard. And all you have to do is go look at my TikTok and my Instagram to know that we were marketing this for months and months and months. Okay, we did make a couple of mistakes. The first one I've already talked about, which was under ordering stock. So we ordered 1,000 paperbacks and obviously then sold over 1,000 like as pre-order, and then still needed stock for like once it was live. That's obviously a great problem to have. But if we had ordered a higher quantity from the start, we would have had a better price. So that was a little bit frustrating. You know, we could have saved a little bit more on each book and therefore increased profit. That's a tough lesson to learn, but it's also one that I'm glad that we learned, because, you know, it is a bit of a balance between how much space do you have for stock, how much money can you afford to spend, and, you know, what do you think your pre-order levels are going to be. That is an inevitable mistake that I think most people will make as their businesses are growing. Okay, the second mistake was packaging. And I can't remember if I've already talked about this, but basically, you know, we pride ourselves on making sure that the books arrive in pristine condition. The consequence of that is how long it takes to package each parcel. The primary damage that a book can fall prey to is the rain or being dropped. So we've been individually wrapping each book in foam or bubble wrap before then putting them inside either a book wrap with the goodies or like a mini packing box that we sort of tape. This therefore took me, you know, nearly 2 weeks to do for circa 1,000 parcels. My warehouse neighbour is a book box subscription company, and I discovered that she ships like 1,000 parcels in a couple of days, and she has multiple items that go into these boxes. And that's because they're using like the origami style boxes with packing peanuts and then a plastic exterior envelope bag for water protection. This results in them working at a significantly faster rate than us, and has now led us to the process of having boxes designed and ordering about 10,000 packing boxes, because then we'll get the best like wholesale price. All right, next lesson: customer communication. Customer communication has been a whole world of interesting, let me put it that way. The more products we create, the more complex everything gets. Becca used to primarily be like a scheduler for me. She worked on the podcast and social media scheduling. She has now moved to almost solely being customer services manager. Major issues include when they pre-order a book and put a published book into the same order. That means that we have to email them and let them know that they've got two options. Either we refund the entire order and they order the published book separately to the pre-order book, or they have to wait for both of their books to arrive because they've only paid for one lot of shipping, so we can only ship it when the latest book, when that pre-order is then published. This is a huge, huge problem, as there are always a number of pre-orders live at any one time for us, and thus a ton of customer communication is needed. It has gotten better because obviously we have released products. We have a lot of repeat customers. We have started to educate our customers, but there are always new customers. Doesn't matter how many messages you put on sales pages, pop-up banners, it doesn't matter. They will not read them, or some of them won't read them, and it is an ever-present problem. So much so that we have now decided to find and commission a coder, somebody who can write code for Shopify so that we can charge 2 lots of shipping if they order a pre-order and a published book. It's called split shipping, and that should resolve a huge majority of our problems and customer service work that we have to do. We have understandably also had a lot of communication about the tariffs. This is so difficult because we are not the ones charging the tariff, but we are the first port of call. And it is in large part due to the incredible team that we've managed to get through this. We are also fighting with the powers that be because books are technically exempt. And unfortunately, the companies are using AI systems which are unable to understand the sort of titles of what we're selling. And so, for example, some of our books went down as fucking music machinery or some bullshit. And so they were charged an extortionate amount of tariff because they thought it was something other than what it is. So we're trying to get refunds for our customers, but this is a lot of time and energy that we're having to handle. Last is that I actually never turned off my emails for Shopify. So I receive an email for every single order. Every single order. Some days there are hundreds of orders, okay? But it means that for whatever reason, I have this ability to remember customer names. Not all of them, obviously, but I remember a lot. And I remember a lot of orders. And I make a point to keep an eye on when I notice that somebody has ordered twice in quick succession. And currently, whilst capacity allows, I am just forwarding them to the team to refund duplicate postage because we can ship and pack them together. I don't know if I'll be able to do that forever, but right now, my brain just seems to be able to, quickly look at the names and then remember that, 3 hours earlier they ordered something. Okay, protecting writing time. Next lesson. This is vital and has been the hardest part of having a warehouse. I definitely feel like I lost about 6 months of writing time. And I do think it is the reason that I barely managed to get Architecty done. It's definitely the reason that I didn't meet my primary goal for 2025, which was to get ahead of production. That's okay, because I think I'm going to get ahead next year. I hope, I pray I'm going to get ahead next year. Staffing does mean interruptions. Good interruptions, but interruptions nonetheless. More than that, it means me trying to find some discipline that I don't really have, to put my phone on Do Not Disturb or chuck it across the room or muting my team chats whilst I write. Now that we're up to speed in the warehouse and we're at the point of refining processes rather than creating processes, and we're starting to put SOPs in place, standard operating procedures, I am finding it easier and easier to not go to the warehouse. Another thing that we're doing is that we've also stopped having the smaller deliveries sent to my actual home, and instead they're going to my team's homes or they're going direct to the warehouse. So that has made a huge difference and is enabling me to stay at home more again. Inevitably, there are always going to be things that, only I can fix or only I can sort out or only I can make a decision on, but by and large, I am back writing again, and that is the critical point. All right, next, regulations and tariffs. With a physical product business, and look, I appreciate that I'm talking about physical books and it's still a book business, but they are a physical product. And so that's why I was talking about this mindset shift. And that is why I now refer to my books as products. They are products for the business. But with a physical product business, there are so many more regulations, more acronyms, more pieces of law that you have to deal with. God, I tell you what, my throat's getting sore. I have not spoken at this length for a long time. Okay, so the level of bureaucracy is quite astonishing, to be honest, and has caused a number of headaches. These headaches are not the type of headaches that most authors want to deal with. You have to recognize that you need to choose the poison that you want to drink. And I genuinely recognize that, this level of bureaucracy headache is not what the majority of authors want to deal with. The other matter here is that the regulations have required a colossal amount of time to be spent on them, to understand them, to go over them. It was more time than we anticipated. Something new is always being thrown at us, and usually things that we do not have the knowledge on. So we're constantly in a state of adapting and learning. And this is both wonderful and also a little bit grueling. I also just need to say, and I'm not going to name them publicly, but there is a provider in our community that has been extremely generous with information about regulations and the paperwork and the laws, and we love them, this provider. They are incredible. I'm extremely grateful to the help and support that they have provided completely off their own back and just out of the kindness of their own heart. So hopefully they know who they are. They have been talking to Petra more than me, but we are very, very grateful if you happen to be listening. Okay, there are not many people doing this, and so we don't have many options for checking in. there aren't really any consultants that we can ask, checking in with other providers in the industry is the best that we can do. And it's, sharing knowledge, creating a better community for all of us. But this is fucking hard. Like, the bureaucracy is hard. This is detailed regulations. And that is not my bag at all. Thank fuck I have the team that I have in place, because I would be fucked, basically. It also means that to a certain extent, we're having to trust ourselves that we've done the best that we can and that we are as close to correct with the law as we can be, because we don't have anybody who can check us. Obviously we have accountants that can check the finance side, but this other side is all very, very new. And I think it's okay to recognise that we don't know everything. I did have a little section in here about packaging, but I've realised that I've already talked about packaging, so I'm not going to repeat myself here, other than to say that packaging matters. When you pack hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parcels, the 30-second difference makes a big, big time difference over a large number of parcels. Logistics. There has been an incredible number of logistical lessons learned too. Firstly, the shipping providers are a fucking nightmare. They are massive organisations. And that means a huge amount of corporate bureaucracy. Lots of being passed between departments and having to wait for responses, and people that just don't know. You are probably going to need additional apps and integrations on your website, some of which will cost. Just pay it. Just fucking pay it. I cannot enforce this enough, because I resisted, because I didn't want to keep increasing my costs. Just pay it, because the apps make your life simpler, they save you time, and that makes you more efficient and effective, which increases your profit. The primary one is that we have had to pay for a DPD integration app, but it has made handling and managing pre-orders and labels considerably easier for us. Another logistical lesson is around batching. Batch as much as you humanly can. So, for example, signing books, I always take a big long day to sign, but also things like preparing freebie packets. So preparing all the goodies and putting them into one packet so that you don't have to pick them for each order. Cutting foam to wrap the books in, or pre-building boxes. Batching packaging, as in packing pre-orders, also matters. For example, we batched all of the UK paperbacks in one go, and then we moved to all the UK hardbacks, and then we moved to international orders, and we did all the USA ones together, and then we did all the EU ones, etc, etc, etc. Batching like this means you can do the same task over and over again, and that makes it so much easier than switching and doing it higgledy-piggledy. The one exception to that is what we call complex orders. So anybody that orders more than just one book, we then will batch all of those together so that we know we'll have, like, say, for example, 100 complex orders to do in one go. All right, timelines. Understanding the timelines for launches has been quite the challenge for us. I have talked about the fact that when you're solo, you're in charge of your own time, and when you have a team and other people do parts of the publishing process, you're no longer working on your own schedule. Combine that with the fact that a huge percentage of my turnover comes from physical book sales, it means that we are looking at radically longer timelines than when it was just a case of uploading to KDP for a print-on-demand service. And then that it will be live the next day or a few days later after you've had a proof copy turn up. Print runs take a couple of days to finalise the files, or that's what we've seen for UK ones, up to several months for international printers. And then it's 2 to 3 weeks to print and deliver for national printers, and several weeks to months for international deliverers. Shipping. Printers. You know what I mean. On top of that, we then have to unpack them, quality check them. I have to sign them. And yes, I'm pretty fast at signing, but that's still several hours of time. And I think in about 4 or 5 hours, I manage between 1,000 and 2,000 books. But all of those tasks have to be done before we can even ship out a single book. So that increases the amount of time from finishing the book, it coming back from the editor, and then you being able to publish it. You cannot underestimate the amount of time these tasks will take. The other timelines that need to be considered are how long things take to pack. I've already talked about that, but actually it's something that we're still considering, because the more pre-orders we get, the more time we need to be preparing those pre-orders, or the more staff we need. You only get 10 days from when you've printed a shipping label to that label being picked up. It has to be collected within 10 days. And we're certainly at the point where we're getting the number of pre-orders where it could go over that time. So either we change how we're batching, or we have to bring in more people to help with packing, and that would mean more staff potentially. I'm hoping that we're okay for now. All right, we are on to the money, the big bit of this episode. This is the bit that I'm pretty sure everybody has been waiting for. All costs are in pounds sterling, British money, my darlings. So just bear that in mind. You'll have to convert into whatever currency you want to convert into. The setup costs for the warehouse were approximately £4,000 to £5,000. This included the deposit for the warehouse, which was the bulk of that money, racking and furniture. So that was everything that we needed to physically get the warehouse up and running. And it took me, I would say, 2 weeks. Most of that was receiving deliveries and unpacking deliveries. The bulk of the work was actually building the racking. I personally built every single fucking rack in that warehouse, and I'm very proud of that fact. Especially because I am not a DIY queen. I have my wife for that, and obviously my wife was working, so I had no choice but to push up my sleeves and, get down and dirty. Way. Moving on. In total this year, so in 2025, I have spent, and this, honestly, I was fucking flabbergasted at this. In total, I have spent a whopping £100,000 on printing. 100 fucking grand. I can't, when the team gave me the spreadsheet and I saw that number, I was like, wait, this year? I was like, no. Can you just, they're like, no, that's this year. 2 years ago, I didn't even, I did. I just about scraped earning 100 grand. So to have then spent 100 grand on printing I just can't even get my head around that. Now, I will give a huge caveat. A significant portion of that money was on the Kickstarter. So I'm not actually going to count those costs in the warehouse, even though we are now obviously storing the books in the warehouse, and the spare books that we ordered are going to give us turnover money. I'm not counting the printing of them, because that printing came out of the Kickstarter money. So, just, if you want to count it, you can, but for me, it doesn't quite count. All right. I actually spent £61,171 on stock for the website. So that's all the standard editions, all the standard hardbacks, paperbacks, and novellas. Let's just call it £61,000. We are still holding a huge amount of that stock in the warehouse. So obviously this is a spend out, and that is capital sat in the warehouse. Once it goes out, we will then, that will obviously, the money that we earn from each of those books will obviously increase the profit margin. So at the moment, we've had a huge amount of cost, so our profit margin is lower, but over the next year, our profit margin should shift. In December 2023, I mentioned to you guys at the top of this show that I started the shop on the 10th of December. So between the 10th of December and the 31st of December, I made just shy of £1,700, which I do believe was mostly due to the viral TikToks. I had quite a few videos do well in that month. By May 2024, in the month of May, I broke £5,000 on the website. So I'd seen a steady increase on the website, but May was the first time that I broke £5,000. In November 2024, so a whole year after, I broke £10,000. That was the first time that I thought, and bear in mind, this was still print on demand. This was all print on demand sales at this point. So I was not running my website, which meant, the profit was slightly lower. In December 2024, so 1 year after I had started the website, I broke 15 grand, £15,000 in a December, which was astonishing to me because I assumed that my sales would drop because it was Christmas, but no. I had also been back to the then new Author Nation, and I had spoken to a couple of authors who had their own warehouses and were doing really well, and I was very encouraged. And then to come home, have broken 10k in November and then break 15k in December, it was the trigger for me to say, actually, I want to take this over. I knew that I wanted to do more for readers. I wanted to be able to easily sign the books. I wanted to be able to do merchandise. I wanted to be able to do book boxes and have subscriptions and do all kinds of things. Looking back, like knowing what I know now, I must have been fucking delusional. Like, what was I thinking? I had no fucking idea. No idea. Like none. Zero. Zilch. Zip. Zibbity. Like no clue what a Pandora's box I was opening. Because this was so much more than I anticipated. I mean, like I'd done my research. I had listened to all the podcasts. I'd interviewed authors doing it. But I think it's like having kids. You don't know until you know. And I did not know. But anyway, I did it. And I'm really fucking glad because what a fun year it has been. Fun, chaotic, slightly painful at times, but really fun. So 2024, my turnover for the year was £73,500. That's sort of rounded up. It was probably a few quid under that, but it was about £73,500. I collected the keys for the warehouse on January the 31st, 2025. It took a couple of weeks to set up the warehouse. I then had the first print runs delivered around the 17th, and we started shipping on February the 20th, 2025. I can't fucking believe that was this year. How is it only this year? It feels like so long ago. Because I'm so tired. No, I'm kidding, I'm fine. That month, February 2025, was a £16,000 month. That month was also the first month that my Shopify sales beat my Amazon sales. It was only by a couple of £100, but it still beat them. And that wasn't lost on me that February happened to be the first month that I'd taken control of distribution. I mean, whether it was just coincidence or, a message from the universe, I don't know, but I did find it incredibly encouraging. So that was February 2025. So that was February this year. Yes, Sasha, that was still this year. All right, April of this year eclipsed Amazon at £29,000. And I have stayed between £15,000 and £29,000 a month since. Finally, this month, November 2025, I have absolutely smashed through £30,000. I think we're on about 32 grand, and it is only the 21st of November 2025. As I record this, we still have well over a week to go. I am very, very hopeful that this will be a fantastic month this month. As of the 21st of November, when I am recording this, we are standing at a turnover of £222,000 for the year. Oh, it makes me a bit nervous to say that. But yeah, £222,000. I suspect we will end up with a turnover of somewhere between £230,000 and £250,000 for 2025. Clearly, I would like to cross 250 because that is a mile marker and a half, $250,000. I'd be surprised if we don't do it. I mean, wait, what is that? Is that 22, 32, 30, 42, 20, 28? I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. I'd be surprised if we don't get close. Creating definitive turnover and then net profit calculations are still very difficult. I have tried my best to give you what I can. But what I can tell you is that between the warehouse and staffing for the warehouse, between utilities and staffing insurances, stock insurances, I spend approximately £1,800 to £1,900 a month. So that's around £21,000 to £23,000 a year. Shipping varies between, some weeks it's down at £500 a week, other weeks it's £1,500 a week. Those are kind of average because when we have the pre-order weeks, it can spike to £8,000. So the highest month we've had for shipping was 11,000. I suspect this month will be higher, but I estimate that we spent around £45,000 to £55,000 on shipping this year. So for print costs, for staffing, for rent and for shipping, the total is approximately £134,000. I estimate maybe £4,000 to £7,000 on other costs like packaging and freebies, printing of the freebies and things. So let's estimate that my spend is around £140,000 for a turnover of £222,000. Bear in mind, I have not spent any money on advertising. So the difference, which is £82,000, is technically profit, although I still have to pay tax on it. So that is a 36% profit. That's not huge. It's not as high as I'd like, but it's also year one, and I'm trying to be realistic about this. Spend is always going to be higher in year one because you have your setup costs, you have to buy stock, and then you hold that stock as an asset in your business. But that, of that 60 grand, if you think, and I will talk about this in a second, but let's just say each book is £2, that's 30,000 books. That's a lot. And if you're charging a $10.99 or $9.99 a book, that's a lot of potential income that you have got. But obviously you have to sell it in order to regain that profit and therefore increase your profit margins. I expect that as we move into I was going to say year 2, but I suppose it's actually year 3. As we move into year 3, I do believe that profit will grow. My aim is to reach about 45%. I think ultimately I would like to be around 50. I think that might be a tough sell whilst I'm still growing and whilst things are still expanding. But, ultimately that's where I would love to be. I think we've got a lot of stock that we can sell without having to spend more, but we shall see. If I can get to 45%, I think that will be great. Because the other thing is, this is 45% of a much, much, much bigger number than when I was doing print on demand direct sales. We've gone from £73,500 turnover to 222. So my profit is higher than the entire turnover for the previous tax year. So if you're asking me whether it was worth it, yeah, it fucking was. In terms of granular costs, because there's sort of those broad brush turnovers and overviews, I can also give you a more detailed level. So look, the cost of each book, we get quotes every single time. It depends on page count. It depends on the quality of the book. So, for example, we have done embossed and spot UV on some of the books. That will increase the price. The reduced page counts decreases the price. The increase in number of books that you print decreases the price of each book. But let's just say on average, a paperback is £2.20. We charge £10.99. We allow on average for an additional £1 of that to cover packaging and freebies, meaning it's roughly £3.20 to £3.50 of costs out of the £10.99. Obviously, that doesn't include a percentage for warehouse overheads. It just gets too complicated for me, who isn't a huge fan of maths. But, I think this is a detailed enough overview to see roughly what the profit looks like. As I've mentioned, I don't have any advertising costs, so the costs to run the warehouse and to buy the product and to ship the product are my costs. I have brought all my customers in from my mailing list, TikTok and Instagram. A couple of other numbers that I want to share with you. On average, my returning customer rate for this year is 35%. However, in months where I've set up a product pre-order or a new book pre-order, that rate skyrockets. So for November, we're at 56% returning customers. That tells you that they like what I do, that what we're doing is working. Similarly, my average conversion rate is 5.83% across. Now, I did the maths on this from the beginning of, from the end of 2023 when I first started. What's interesting is that in those early months, my conversion rate was down at 3.18%. This month, it's at 8.53%. Now, obviously, that increase is twofold. I think, first of all, it's partially down to the high returning customer rate. Automatically, if it's a return customer, they're warm, they're already more likely to buy from you because they know that you deliver what they want. But also, I think it's my marketing. I think our marketing has gotten better and better. Not only the marketing and how we're talking about our books and products, it's the way in which we hype up the audience, but also the amount of time that we're willing to tease them for. And then also, I am getting better and better and better at providing to-market books. So books that I know that my readers love. We get a lot of data on what is working for them in my stories, and I am able to tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak and provide books that are closer and closer and closer to their perfect book. And you can see that from the ratings of my most recent book, Architecty. They are, for a book one in a series, they are much higher than the last two book series, book ones. So the way that I like to talk about that is that we are not only writing to market, not only shipping to market, we are also delivering to market and marketing to market. All right, cash flow. This is the last thing that I'm going to talk about. It's not sexy, but it is important. One of the best things that I did, and this did come from advice from a good friend of mine, was to have multiple pots inside my bank accounts and also have multiple bank accounts. For a long time, I'd lived under the assumption that you could only have one business bank account. That was shit advice from a shit accountant. I have since left them, and I now have an excellent accountant. I have also had, as I've said, lots of advice from a dear friend who knows far more about money and systems than me. Cash flow can either skyrocket or cripple a business. And when you run a physical business, the numbers that you have to shell out and that you see coming in are so much higher that one mistake could easily crush your company if you do not have a big access to a big cash pot. One of my favorite tactics is to create mini pots and split up money. My website has its own bank account. Like, obviously it's a bank account in my business name, but nothing else comes and goes from that bank account. It is all of the website sales. It's the shipping. We pay for the packaging out of it, and we pay for the print runs out of it. That has meant that I can keep really good data, clear accounting data on that account, and it has just made it so much easier for me. The other thing I do, though, is I actually take out money from that account for pre-orders. So every week my team run a pre-order report, and they tell me how much money customers have spent, including shipping. So it's the cost of the item plus their shipping amount. And I then remove that money and I put it into a individual pot. So my Architecty had a pot. My Enteritus pre-order has a pot. Our Summer of Sin book box has a pot. And I put all of that money in there. That then means I can take money out for the print run of that book or for the packaging for the book box. It keeps the data so much cleaner. It is much easier to work out if you are or are not in profit if you can see exactly how much money you have on a particular item. I do not do this for items that are published. If a product becomes published, that money just goes into the website account and I no longer track it. This is only for pre-orders. Okay. I also have accounts and pots for tax. I move both personal tax money and corporation tax money into a high interest savings account. And then, I either pay myself or pay the tax and then the government or whatever at the appropriate time. But I put it into a high interest savings account because then it can make money whilst it waits to be paid to the appropriate places. The biggest outflows for running a distribution warehouse are staffing, warehouse rent, shipping, and print runs. For Architecti specifically, as I mentioned earlier, we had to do 2 print runs because we under-ordered books. This came to a total of £11,630. That is a big amount of money to spend on print runs. And look, the other reason that I do this with the pre-order money is because it essentially becomes a savings scheme, right? But also, you don't get your money from Amazon until that book releases. So I feel like there is a big temptation to go, oh, look, I've got 25 grand from this pre-order. I could spend it all. But actually, no. By putting it into a set aside pot, you make sure that you pay for your print runs out of it. You pay for the freebies, the artwork, and then you have saved all of the shipping money. Because obviously, when they order from you, you are not shipping that book till months later. If you don't set that money aside, you're going to have a huge shipping bill that you don't have the money for. So the month that we shipped Architecti, our shipping fees were £11,000 that month, on top of the £11,500 that I had to spend for the print run. £22,500. That is a fucking big amount of money if you haven't put that money aside. So am I being anal about this? Yeah, probably. But actually, this is how you manage cash flow. This, for me, is the right way for me to manage this cash flow. Sure, it might not be the right one for you, but this is what is working for me. So what this means is that every week the team will calculate income for the pre-orders and obviously the shipping for each product. We usually have at least 2 or 3 products on pre-order. I then transfer that money into individual pots and I keep that money in those pots right up until launch, unless it's to pay for shipping or it's to pay for print runs or it's to pay for whatever. Whatever is left in that pot is profit, which is then taxable. So I move the tax money into a tax pot and I keep the rest in my account. This is the safest way I have found for managing cash flow and ensuring that I don't spend money that needs to be saved for specific things. All right, I've already mentioned that I have a completely separate account for my Shopify. That's where everything's paid for, like print runs, etc. I kind of put money back in there for the print runs. All my payments go out of that account as well. And it's completely self-managing. I actually don't really have to touch the account at all. What I do is I try and keep the account with 20 grand in it. And then that means that there's always going to be enough for a really expensive print bill, a really expensive shipping bill. I've always got money for print runs. If it dips under that, I, make a point to save it, make it go up again. And if it goes, at one point this month, it was over 40. So I've taken money and moved the money around. Okay, I think that is probably it. What are the lessons, or what are the things that I'm going to do differently? When I was at Author Nation, I learned quite a few things about how, I guess, unique my situation is. The fact that I don't do advertising and I've still managed to generate this much income is a surprise, I think. There were quite a few people that were surprised at Author Nation when I kind of spoke about my numbers, and I didn't realise that was unusual. But actually it showed me that I am not doing an awful lot of things that I should be, that should increase profit and turnover. There are a number of areas for growth that I am going to be working on. So the first one is an upsell app. We've actually already done this. We've already integrated it and we're already seeing it working. So this is basically an app that pops onto your, I guess, Shopify back end, and it will upsell. Let's say somebody puts a bundle in their basket. They'll get to the basket and it'll be like, would you like a double bundle? You'll save an extra blah, 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 blah. So we've started to put that into place. I also need to put a better upsell marketing system in place. Klaviyo was mentioned approximately 78 million times whilst I was in Vegas. That Klaviyo system will tag readers. It will enable you to upsell over the long term. And so we're going to be working on that. We're actually going to find somebody who can do it for us, because I don't have the capacity and neither does the team at the moment. I might possibly look at advertising next year, it might be something that I can do. I know that lots of people are struggling with Facebook ads in particular at the moment, but that is something that, you know, is a bit of an untapped market for me. So I think that might be something that I do next year. I don't know. I don't like the idea of spending money on ads when I've done this much without it, but I have got lofty financial goals. So maybe I need a little bit of help to get up to those goals. We shall see. And then last but by no means least is branded packaging. And that we kind of talked about earlier on as one of the lessons learned for making packaging simpler and easier and swifter. So that's it. A whopping episode, an hour and 10 minutes I think it's been. I hope there's some of you still here. I miss you guys so much. I hope that you enjoy this episode. I hope that you either are horrified or delighted by everything that I've told you in this. I hope for some of you who have been considering it, it might be the push or the inspiration that you need to jump in and do this. And yeah, I hope that it has been interesting. I hope that you've loved listening to my dulcet tones again. And I will bid you all goodbye for now. And hopefully I will be back with another Lessons Learned episode at some point in the future.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.